Welcome to the Ramayana, Stories of Dharm and Devotion. I'm Sandeep, your storyteller, guiding you through the eternal journey of Valmiki's Ramayana. Our narrative draws deeply from Valmiki's original text and is enriched with stories from other Indian traditions, offering you a complete and immersive experience of this eternal tale. In our previous episode, the battlefield was reborn. Ram and Lakshman, restored by the divine touch of Garud, rose once again not just as warriors, but as instruments of destiny. Around them, the Vanar Sena stood stronger, wiser. New strategies were forged. Vibhishan revealed the secrets of sorcery in Lanka. Hanuman and Jambavan prepared to dispel illusions. Lakshman reminded Ram that dharm does not mean restraint, it means righteousness in full force. And Ram, with quiet fire in his heart, vowed to unleash the divine weapons granted to him by sages, not for destruction, but for justice. Today's episode begins with fear creeping into the halls of Raavan's palace. His illusions had failed. His mighty son Indrajit's strike had only delayed the storm, not stopped it. And now, Ram marches forward again. Raavan, restless and angry, summons 4 of his most trusted generals. Dhumraksha, a giant-bodied and smoke-eyed, filled with fury. Vajradamshtra with teeth like thunderbolts and a hunger for war. Akampan, who is calm-faced but unshakable in battle. And the mighty Prashast, master of formation and fear. He sends them not together, but one after the other, each meant to crush a part of Ram's army, each meant to turn the tide. But what Raavan does not see is that this war has changed. No longer is it a clash of bodies. It is now a war of fate, of wisdom, of light against deception. Join me now as the battlefield echoes once more with war cries, as the Vanars rise to face each of Raavan's champions. Watch how dharm faces one storm after another, not with fear, but with ferocity guided by grace. The time of generals has begun, and one by one they fall.
Hearing the thunderous cries of celebration from the Vanar camp, Raavan's smile vanished. The sound was not one of mourning, but of triumph. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. He immediately ordered his demons to climb the ramparts and find out the cause. The demons rushed to the towers and peered over the battlefield. What they saw left them stunned. Ram and Lakshman, once lying silent, bound in magical arrows, now stood tall, their wounds vanished, their strength restored. They looked like two bull elephants, majestic, immovable, radiating divine fire. And the Vanar Sena had begun to beat their war drums once more. The demons returned to Raavan and bowed low. One of them said carefully, "My lord, Ram and Lakshman, they are live." Raavan growled, "What?" They replied, "They are free, my king. Their bodies unbound, their strength returned. Like twin mountains, they stand once more in the heart of the battlefield." Raavan clenched his fists. His illusion had failed. The war was far from over. In a flash of rage, he summoned Dhumraksha, one of his fiercest commanders. Massive in size, with red eyes and grey, smoke-like skin, Dhumraksha was known for crushing armies beneath his spiked make. Raavan roared, "Dhumraksha, take your legion. Leave through the western gate. Kill Ram. Kill Lakshman. Burn their monkeys to ashes. I want nothing left behind but dust." Dhumraksha bowed. "As you command, O king." The ground trembled as Dhumraksha's army rolled out of Lanka's western gate. Thousands of demon warriors marched behind him, carrying spears, swords, and black iron shields. Their war drums pounded like heartbeats of doom. But as they crossed the threshold of Lanka, the skies changed. Clouds blackened. The sun dimmed. A sharp wind swept through the air, howling like a warning. Dhumraksha looked up and saw vulture land upon his chariot's flag. Blood-red eyes stared into his eyes. Then, from above, droplets of blood began to rain from the sky, staining his armor and banners. His commanders looked at him, uneasy. Dhumraksha frowned. He muttered ominous signs, The earth trembles, vultures descend, and blood falls from the heavens. For a moment, doubt flickered in his chest. But pride pushed it aside. He barked, "Onward! Let them see who commands death today." What he did not know was that Hanuman stood waiting. At the western front, Hanuman had taken position. Behind him stood battalions of Vanars, strong, agile, fierce, led by Neel and Gavaya. But none of them moved forward. Not yet, because Hanuman had said, "Let me meet him first." He stood at the center of the field with bare hands, steady breath, and calm that hid a storm. When Dhumraksha's army appeared in the distance, a Vanar scout whispered, 10,000 demons, maybe more. Hanuman didn't flinch. His gaze was fixed on the lead chariot and the beast seated within it. He said softly, "So Dhumraksha comes. Let him try." As Dhumraksha approached, he saw Hanuman standing alone. He laughed. "One monkey? This is Ram's defense?" Hanuman crouched low, and then, with a mighty leap, he launched into the sky. The war cry that left his chest cracked the sky in two. What followed was a battle no soldier would forget. Hanuman flew like a whirlwind, crashing into demon lines, uprooting trees, smashing chariots, hurling rocks the size of mountains. He moved not with rage, but with purpose. Every strike was a vow. Every roar was a promise. Dhumraksha fought back, swinging his make with fury. His spells darkened the sky, but Hanuman danced through them faster than thought, stronger than storm. The two clashed at the center. Make met fist. Steel met stone. The battlefield shook. Finally, Hanuman rose high into the air, carrying a boulder wrenched from the earth, and with a roar that echoed through the hills, he crushed Dhumraksha beneath it. Silence followed. Then cheers erupted from the Vanar ranks. The demons scattered. The western gate of Lanka had fallen. Hanuman stood tall, bloodied but radiant. He turned toward the city walls and shouted, "Tell your king, this is only the beginning." And so, the message was clear. Raavan had tried deception. Raavan had tried brute force. But dharm had risen. And Hanuman was just getting started. When news reached the golden halls of Lanka that Dhumraksha had fallen, crushed by Hanuman's might, Raavan's fury erupted like a volcano. His eyes burned red, his breath hissed like a cornered serpent. He smashed a golden goblet on the stone floor and shouted, "Summon Vajradamshtra." Within moments, the doors opened and invoked a towering demon clad in black iron, his fangs curved like daggers, his body covered in glowing scars from ancient spells. Vajradamshtra was no ordinary warrior. He was a master of dark arts, a commander of both brute force and illusion. Raavan ordered, "Take the southern gate, destroy Ram, crush Sugriv, burn the monkeys to ash. Let them know that Lanka still breathes fire." Vajradamshtra bowed and growled, "I will bathe this land in blood, my king." With him marched a fearsome legion, were elephants with crimson armor, chariots drawn by beasts never seen in daylight, demons armed with black swords and poisonous darts. They stormed out of Lanka's southern gate like a flood of night. But the skies were uneasy. Meteors streaked across the heavens. Jackals howled from the hills, and vines turned bitter cold. Still, Vajradamshtra laughed. "Let the skies weep if they must. I bring the storm." But waiting on the southern front was Angad, the son of Bali, the prince of Kishkindha, the lion-hearted warrior who had once walked into Raavan's court alone and returned with laughter echoing behind him. Now he stood tall, spear in hand, tail lashing behind him like a whip of flame. The demon army met the Vanars head-on. What followed was a storm of screams and steel. Trees became clubs. Rocks became hammers. Spears clashed with tusks. Arrows turned the sky into a net of fire. Vajradamshtra charged through the chaos like a force of nature, his arrows tearing through the air, his roars silencing even the bravest Vanars. He fought like a demon possessed, striking down dozens with every sweep of his sword. But then Angad leapt into the air. He landed before Vajradamshtra with a thunderous crash, cracking the earth beneath him. Angad growled, "You've come far, but this is where your path ends." Vajradamshtra sneered, "You're no Ram. You're just a monkey." Angad's eyes flashed. "Then let this monkey show you the fury of dharm." Vajradamshtra drew his bow, launching a flurry of flaming arrows. They struck Angad's chest and arms, drawing blood, but the prince did not fall. With a roar, Angad lifted a massive tree and hurled it like a spear. Vajradamshtra dodged, countering with a spell that darkened the field, but Angad charged through it, undeterred. They clashed in a brutal melee of arrows against fists, magic against might. Angad bled, but did not slow. His blows shook the air. His voice echoed across the field, rallying the Vanars once more. Finally, as Vajradamshtra lunged forward with his sword, Angad ducked under the strike, rolled across the blood-soaked earth, seized a broken chariot wheel, and then leapt high. With the wheel spinning in his hands, Angad brought it down upon Vajradamshtra's head with the force of a mountain. The demon's eyes widened, and then silence. Vajradamshtra's head rolled to the ground. His body collapsed, and his army, watching the fall of their warlord, panicked. The southern gate of Lanka thundered with the retreat of demon feet. They ran, terrified, defeated. The Vanars erupted in cheers. Angad raised his arms, but not in pride. In purpose. He shouted, "For Ram, for dharm." The battlefield echoed with roars of victory. Monkeys beat their chests. Drums pounded again. One more demon had fallen, and Lanka had begun to crack. When news of Vajradamshtra's defeat echoed through the marble halls of Lanka, Raavan did not mourn. No grief, no fear, only a deeper resolve wrapped in cold rage. He turned to another of his mightiest generals, the mighty Akampan. Clad in black armor, eyes glowing like embers, Akampan was a fearsome figure, a master of every weapon, a demon of unmatched strength, and above all, a loyal servant of Raavan. Raavan said, his voice thunderous yet calm, "O mighty one, you have watched two of my greatest warriors fall. It is now your turn to rise. Go, crush Ram, destroy Lakshman, and scatter the monkeys to the winds." Akampan placed his palm on his chest and bowed deeply. He declared, "I shall return only when their bones pave the battlefield." Akampan gathered a vast force of chariot warriors, sword-bearers, and make-wielding giants. The southern skies darkened as they marched, drums beat like war thunder, conches wailed in warning. But as Akampan stepped into his war chariot, signs of doom shadowed his every move. His horses neighed wildly and refused to move. His left eye throbbed. A black vulture landed on the chariot's banner, and a voice carried by the wind whispered, "Turn back." But demons do not fear omens. Akampan laughed them away and drove his army straight into the heart of the Vanar formation. What followed was chaos. So fierce was the clash between the Vanars and demons that the battlefield turned into a thick cloud of dust. Nothing could be seen. Confusion reigned. Some soldiers struck down their own allies. The smell of blood, the cries of war, and the sound of weapons echoed like a storm of death. But when the dust settled, the real war began. The Vanars, led by the fearless trio of Kumud, Nala, and Manda, rose like tidal waves. With trees for clubs and rocks for shields, they tore into the demon ranks. Each strike from their hands crushed bone and armor alike. The battlefield turned into a sea of fallen demons and chariots shattered. And then Akampan himself entered the fray. Ragging with fury, Akampan shouted, "Stand aside. I will finish this myself." He raised his longbow, enchanted with deadly spells, and rained arrows upon the Vanars like a monsoon of fire. So fast and so sharp were his attacks that the monkey warriors scattered, fear gripping even the bravest. Then came a roar, not from the demons, not from the heavens, but from the heart of the forest. Hanuman came. He appeared like a burning comet, with his body glowing with divine fire, his eyes calm yet fierce. He charged towards Akampan, unarmed. The demon fired arrow after arrow. They struck Hanuman's chest, arms, and face. Blood trickled, but Hanuman did not slow. He only smiled. He asked, "Is that all?" Hanuman seized a nearby mountain, its peak heavy with trees and stone, and hurled it with divine strength. The skies split open with the force of his throw. Akampan, calm in his wicked power, took a crescent-shaped arrow and shattered the mountain midair. Rocks fell like rain. The battlefield gasped. Hanuman growled. He rushed forward, uprooting a giant tree, branches still alive with birds and leaves. With fire in his stride, he cut through the demon army. Akampan struck him with 14 enchanted arrows, each dipped in poison, each aimed at vital points. Hanuman staggered, but only for breath. And then the vine god's son surged forward. With one mighty leap, he raised the tree like a thunderbolt, and before Akampan could draw again, Hanuman brought it down upon his head. The blow split the sky. The earth cracked, and Akampan's lifeless form collapsed to the ground. The demon army, stunned and broken, turned and fled toward Lanka. The Vanar Sena erupted in triumph. Hanuman stood amidst the ruin not in pride, but in stillness. His heartbeat was only for Ram. Ram, Lakshman, and the commanders saluted him. Even the gods above whispered praises. Sugriv wrote, "This is what happens when darkness meets faith." Lakshman turned to Ram and said softly, "With Hanuman by our side, no mountain is too high, no demon too strong." Ram simply smiled, for with each battle, the path to Sita grew clearer, and Lanka grew weaker. When word of Akampan's death reached Raavan, the air inside the golden halls of Lanka thickened with rage. No longer did the sound of drums echo in celebration. Now, there was only silence and Raavan's burning fury. He rose from his throne like a storm rising over the ocean, eyes glowing red, breath heavy with venom. The ministers watched, afraid to speak. The shadow of fear stretched across the marble floor as Raavan summoned his mightiest general. He thundered, "Bring me Prashast." The doors creaked open, and Prashast, tall as a mountain and wrapped in crimson armor, stepped into the chamber. His face was calm, his stride unwavering. Raavan pointed toward the war map, his voice low but laced with wrath. He said, "Enough. Enough of these defeats. Dhumraksha, Vajradamshtra, Akampan, all brought down like leaves in a storm. The monkeys, the mortals are carving through my warriors like a sword through silk." He turned to face Prashast fully, eyes narrowing. He said, "You, Prashast, you were born for this hour. You are my shield, my hammer. Let the sight of your chariot make the Vanars tremble. Crush them. Destroy Ram and Lakshman. Leave nothing behind but ash and regret." Prashast bowed, his voice deep and resolute. He replied, "My king, I have waited for this moment. The war will not be easy, omens are dark, and death circles above us like a vulture, but I do not flinch from fate. If blood must flood the field, let it begin with mine. I will not return without victory or without being carried upon my shield." Raavan stepped closer, eyes locked with his generals. He said, "I trust no one more than I trust you, Prashast. This kingdom rests on your shoulders now. Fight not just with arms, but with fury. Today, you do not go to battle for Lanka alone. You go to battle for Raavan." Prashast raised his hand in salute. He said, "Then let the heavens watch. I will darken the skies with arrows. I will fill the earth with the bones of our enemies. And should I fall, I shall fall with my face toward the battlefield, never turned away." Raavan watched as Prashast turned and marched away into legend or into doom, none could say. But as the chariot wheels rolled out from Lanka's eastern gate, and the demon army followed, the wind itself seemed to whisper a warning. And Raavan, though proud, could no longer ignore the chill crawling down his spine. The gates behind Prashast closed, and destiny opened its door. As the demons prepared for war, they performed rituals and placed sacred garlands. Prahasta mounted his magnificent chariot and set off with his army, accompanied by 4 powerful demon generals, Narantak, Kumbhahanu, Mahanad, and Samunnath. They marched out of the eastern gate, a massive force ready for a fight. However, as Prahasta advanced, many bad omens appeared. The wind howled, a meteor fell, and a vulture landed on his chariot's flag. The sky rained blood, and his horses stumbled on flat ground. Prahasta's usual brilliant aura seemed to vanish. Ignoring these terrible signs, Prahasta and his army charged toward the monkeys, who, armed with trees and rocks, roared in defiance. From a high point overlooking the battlefield, Ram watched the approaching army. He turned to Vibhishan, his gaze steady. He asked, "Who is that figure huge of frame, swift as a storm, leading an army so vast it seems to carry the weight of Lanka itself?" Vibhishan bowed his head respectfully. He replied, "That, my lord, is Prahasta, Raavan's army chief, a master of weapons, feared even by his own soldiers. 2/3 of the Lankan army march with him. He is not just strong in body, but in sorcery and strategy." Ram nodded, his eyes narrowing, and said, "Then the mountain must meet the storm." The field trembled as the 2 armies clashed. From the demon side, a storm of blades and arrows flew, daggers, spears, clubs, lances, glittering in the morning sun. From the Vanars came the roars of defiance, as they lifted rocks, uprooted trees, and tore the earth itself to use as weapons. The air became a blur of shrieks and howls, blood and dust. Arrows pierced flesh, rocks crushed bone, swords slit through limbs, and iron bars smashed skulls. The earth drank deep of death. The monkeys were fierce, but the demons were merciless. Narantak, Kumbhahanu, Mahanad, and Samunnath struck down many brave Vanars, but they were not left unchallenged. Dvivid, the mighty monkey, lifted a mountain peak and crushed Narantak. Dhumraksha felled Samunnath with a single blow of a great tree. Jambavan, the ancient warrior, hurled a massive rock at Mahanad, shattering his chest. But when Kumbhahanu slew the Vanar commander Tara, a hush of shock swept through the monkey ranks. Furious, Prahasta stepped into the battle, his bow singing as he fired arrow after arrow, each finding its mark. Vanars fell in waves, fear gripping their hearts. Then came Neel, the monkey general, eyes blazing, strength unmatched. He saw Prahasta from afar, seated in his sun-colored chariot, mowing down the Vanars like grass. Ram, watching from afar, whispered to Lakshman, "The tide must turn." With a war cry that echoed across the field, Neel charged. Prahasta turned his chariot and faced him, drawing his bowstring back until it creaked. He snarled, "You are brave to come alone, monkey, but I will break you like a twig." Arrows flew, searing through the air like flames. Neel endured them like a mountain under storm. Blood flowed from his wounds, but he did not stop. Uprooting a great sala tree, he hurled it at the demon's horses, killing them instantly. Prahasta leapt down, enraged. With a roar, he seized his make and ran at Neel. The 2 clashed fists, claws, teeth, tree and make. Their strikes shook the earth. They bit, they roared, they fought like Vritra and Indra, titans locked in final combat. Prahasta struck Neel on the forehead, splitting the skin, blood pouring down his face. Neel growled, grabbed a boulder, and smashed it into Prahasta's chest. The demon stumbled, but rose again, wild with rage. He bellowed, "This ends now." He charged, "Make high." Neel, swift as the wind, picked up a rock as large as a chariot, and with all the strength of the Vanar race, hurled it at Prahasta's head. It struck. A sound like thunder split the field. Prahasta's skull shattered. Blood gushed like a spring from his ruined head. His body trembled, then fell, lifeless, like a massive tree struck by lightning. Seeing their commander fall, the demons lost heart. Their formation crumbled. No longer a mighty tide, they turned into scattered ripples running, limping, fleeing back to Lanka. Their leader dead, they were like water over a broken dam, directionless, weak, full of fear. Neel, smeared in blood, stood over the body of Prashast. Behind him, the Vanar army roared in triumph. Ram and Lakshman came forward and embraced him. Ram said with deep pride, "You have done what few could. Lanka has lost its mightiest wall today." And so, another pillar of Raavan's empire had fallen. The earth, soaked in blood, bore witness to the power of dharm, of courage, and of fate.
In this episode, we saw Raavan's pride shaken once more, not by gods or curses, but by the hands of mortal warriors and the courage of monkeys who refused to retreat. We saw Dhumraksha, Vajradamshtra, Akampan, and finally Prashast, 4 pillars of Lanka's war machine, fall one by one, not to fate, but to the fury of righteousness. We witnessed Angad, Dhumraksha, Jambavan, and the fearless Neela rise like storms upon the battlefield. We saw trees become weapons, mountains become missiles, and hearts become unbreakable. And then came the towering shadow of Prashast, the general Raavan believed to be Lanka's final shield. But even he, for all his might and dark mastery, was no match for the fire that burned within the Vanar army. Neel stood against him, and in a battle fierce as any ever fought, shattered Prahasta's skull and the illusion of Lankan invincibility along with it. The battlefield was soaked in blood, yet in that blood, the resolve of Ram's army only grew. With every demon slain, with every roar from Hanuman's ranks, we saw fear spread among the very walls of Lanka. Join me in the next episode as the tyrant of Lanka descends from his golden throne and steps into the dust of war. There, he will meet not just the fury of Sugriv, Hanuman, Lakshman, and Neel, but the steady, divine wrath of Ram himself. The war has reached its center, and Raavan can no longer hide. Share this podcast with your loved ones, and let the timeless lessons of the Ramayana inspire your journey. Though the details of this ancient tale may vary across traditions, its essence reminds us of the enduring power of compassion, courage, and hope in the face of adversity. Until next time, may the light of dharm illuminate your path and fill your heart with peace.